In this video, we're going to learn about seams. A seam is an image texture that is attached to and automatically repeats along the edge of a piece or internal line. Seams can be found in the Materials Garment tab Seam Category drop-down menu of the left side resources. These seams are created as vector files. Additional seams can be found in the Libraries tab under Seams and Trims. When we hover over a seam thumbnail, we can access more information in the drop-down menu. These options include clone the seam, rename, reset color, and more. We'll use clone later in the video to create a new seam variation. Let's assign this seam to our garment. For seams, it is recommended to use the Assign tool as it is more direct on small areas like an edge. We can see the seam texture image is repeating along the line. Let's look at the texture options in the right side context menu. To view this menu, select a seam thumbnail from the Material Resources tab using the Texture tool. The texture has a face image and a back image, with the ability to adjust each separately. To copy the image in maps from face to back, we select this arrow, and do the same with the opposite arrow to copy from back to face. Just like with the fabric, we can easily change the color. In the context view, we go to the Workmanship section, which shows us seam and thread options, all of which we can edit. We'll start with seam properties: offset, line count, distance. Offset allows us to specify the distance from the edge of the pattern piece. For example, if we want the seam to be 1 inch from the edge, we type in 1 inch for offset. Line count is the number of times the seam is repeated along the edge. Since this is a double needle, the line count is 2. Distance is the space between the seams. For example, we want less space between the seams, so we type in 0.15 for distance. Now we'll look at thread properties: length, width, space, 3D thickness. Length and width are the length and width of the seam material image. Note that we can set these properties individually, or we can click the link icon so that the changes to either length or width are automatically and proportionately implemented. For example, if length and width are linked, and we increase the length, the width is automatically increased, and so on. Length can be adjusted in SPI, SPC, or your system unit preferences. Space is the distance between each stitch image. Thickness is the thread thickness. Thickness can be adjusted in text, ticket, metric, denier, or your system unit preferences. 3D thickness is a legacy property used to wrap a solid image around a pattern piece edge. A use case for 3D thickness would be a binding image. Each seam texture is comprised of the main image, diffuse, and corresponding texture maps to build a 3D visual in the simulation window. The advanced option is related to material maps, which we cover in a separate video. The first section allows us to apply a fur effect to our materials. We will cover this function in detail in a later video. To use the same seam a different distance from edge, we'll clone the seam and change the distance from edge. When two seams meet, we can specify their alignment using corner seam alignment options. Using Select tool, select the corner point where the seams meet. On the right-hand context menu, choose which corner seam alignment option is correct for your garment. The first option is Overlap. Overlap 1 places the first seam over the second seam. Overlap 2 places the second seam over the first seam. The second option is Cover. Cover 1 hides the first seam with the second seam. Cover 2 hides the second seam with the first seam. The third option is Meet. This option tapers both seams to meet at the corner equally. To remove any assigned seam, right-click on the line where it is applied and choose Remove Seam. In this video, you've learned about seams. For more information, check out the Browseware Help Center.